Look, so I recently went through one of the craziest fat loss transformations of my entire life. I went from 93 kgs to 78 kgs body weight, and I lost about 15 kgs purely just fat. And the thing about fat loss is it isn't just about changing the amount of fat on your body, it changes you in so many different ways. Everything in my life changed from that moment. My confidence shifted, how I saw myself shifted, my impact on other people in the world shifted, and the discipline I went about with life and the purpose I had just completely changed. Look, if you're able to change something as much as your body recomposition and get into the best shape of your life, it gives you a strong mind to the point where you know that you can achieve anything in life. Before I transformed my entire body, when I was still 93 kgs, I remember my confidence wasn't where it is now. I just wasn't as confident about myself. In fact, I was a little bit insecure because I knew that there was work that needed to be done. When it came to taking my shirt off, when I was at the beach or when I was at a friend's house, I was a little bit nervous because I wasn't happy with how I looked internally. And that confidence that I had about my physique didn't just show when I was at the beach, it spilled into every single area of my life. When I completely shifted my body, changed my physique, I now have abs. Now I've just got so much confidence about myself. When I go to the beach, I'm happy to take my shirt off. I like taking my shirt off because I like how my physique looks. In my social life is completely different because I'm just in crazy shape. I'm truly happy with how I am and where I am in life. But I remember when I first started trying to lose body fat, I went over the internet. I just saw so many different people talking about different approaches. There were so many different diets. There was the carnivore diet, there was the keto diet. Everyone was saying different things. And to some degree, I was misled because I did try the keto diet, I did try the carnivore diet, and I hardly got any results from that because I couldn't stick to those diets for long enough. It felt too restrictive, and I felt like the only way I was going to be able to lose body fat was if I did those diets, and I just couldn't stick with those approaches. Eventually, after months of trying different approaches, trying different forms of cardio, I eventually cracked the code. And looking back now, fat loss isn't even that hard. In fact, it's simple. It's not easy, it's simple. It just requires discipline and consistency with the right things. In this video, I'm going to be giving you a full guide, everything I wish I knew before going on this journey. I'm going to be explaining all the mistakes I made on my journey so that you don't make those same mistakes on your journey. Mistakes people always make on their fat loss journey, I'm going to be covering those. If you get super serious about fat loss, this will change your life because fat loss changes your confidence, it changes how you view yourself, you build good habits, you build the mentality you need to be successful in any area of life. It's not just about losing fat, it's not just about looking better, it's not just about feeling more confident. Fat loss will change your life forever. In fact, throughout the journey actually didn't feel crazy hard. It didn't feel crazy difficult. The most difficult part of this journey was just staying consistent and doing the same thing every single day. The consistency is the hard part, but the actual habits that you do on this journey, they're pretty simple. This is the guide I genuinely wish I had before I started my entire fat loss journey because I did so many of the wrong things. I did the wrong approaches. I made so many mistakes along the way. I just stumbled so many times, but eventually I was able to lose the body fat. And if I just knew then what I know now, fat loss would have been so much easier. I wish somebody told me exactly what I'm going to tell you in this guide for you to be able to lose body fat effectively. Now, I guarantee you, if you apply everything that I'm going to teach you in this guide, you can start seeing progress this week. You will literally start losing body fat this week if you can apply what I'm going to show you and you can take this approach serious and be consistent. Now, before I start my full guide, I would like to start this guide off with a quote. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Now, what you have to understand about fat loss is that it's literally maths and science. Your body uses calories as a source of fuel to power growth. It's able to build cells, literally muscle or fat, through calories, and calories are the source of energy that your body taps into when it's building muscle, when it's building fat. It uses calories as its energy. Now your body burns a certain amount of calories each and every single day. When you eat less calories than your body is burning, this is called a calorie deficit. This forces your body to tap into its own source of energy, which is body fat. Body fat is literally stored energy on your body that your body can tap into in the future. And your body can only tap into this body fat if it's in a calorie deficit. So if you want to start losing weight, you have to be in a calorie deficit. That is the first non-negotiable. You have to create a calorie deficit. Now, a lot of people just don't understand how many calories they burn on a day-to-day basis. Everybody's calorie expenditure is different, and the amount of calories you burn on a day-to-day basis can be impacted by a few factors. But how do you find out how many calories your body is actually burning on a day-to-day basis? The first way you can do that is by going onto an online calorie calculator, also known as a TDEE calculator. TDEE stands for Total Daily Energy Expenditure. Once you go onto this calculator, you plug in a bunch of information about your body, such as your height, weight, age, and your general activity levels. The TDEE calculator will create a calculated estimate of how many calories your body burns on a day-to-day basis. This is a good starting point for you to start making progress. Once you know how many calories your body burns on a day-to-day basis to maintain its current weight, this is called your maintenance calories. Your maintenance calories is how many calories you need to be consuming on a day-to-day basis to maintain your current body weight. So once you know your maintenance calories, you want to reduce your maintenance calories by 500 calories. This will immediately put you into a calorie deficit. When you're eating less calories than your maintenance calories, you start losing weight. So now that you know your maintenance calories and you know the amount of calories you're going to be eating on a day-to-day basis to start losing weight, which is 500 calories less than your maintenance calories, how do you know how many calories is in basic food? Because now you want to be eating in your calorie deficit, but you need to be able to calculate how many calories is in your breakfast, how many calories is in your lunch, so that you can start to lose weight. Now, tracking calories is very simple. The most accurate way to track calories is using a food scale. Now, you might have heard of these AI calorie tracker apps or a whole bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of them out there. But what you have to know about these AI calorie tracker apps is that they're not that accurate. How are you supposed to actually know how many calories is in your food? And how is it supposed to know how many grams is in your food? So look, you can go and use these apps if you just want to learn. But the best way is to actually weigh your food out with a scale and use MyFitnessPal. So weigh your food out in a scale individually. If it's eggs, weigh your eggs and then find eggs on MyFitnessPal. Put the amount of grams of eggs that you weighed out in MyFitnessPal and you get the calories super easily. So just log all your food on MyFitnessPal. Get into the habit of tracking everything that you put in your body. Just the simple act of tracking your calories is going to make you a lot less likely to cheat on your diet. Just simply tracking what goes into your body will help you stay more consistent. If you're in a calorie deficit, you're gonna lose weight. So congratulations, you're losing weight now. You don't have to watch the rest of this video, right? Wrong. What you've mastered is weight loss. You haven't mastered fat loss. The difference between weight loss and fat loss is that with weight loss, you can lose muscle and fat, and you simply just look like a smaller, weaker version of yourself. So imagine yourself in your exact proportions, just shrunk down into a smaller version of yourself. You still will look fat. If you actually want to look lean, you have to master fat loss, which is when your body targets fat and you lose fat, not weight, not muscle. You lose fat. When you lose fat, you actually look like a sculpted version of yourself. So the muscle stays the exact same size, but then the fat gets reduced, which makes you look like a stronger, more sculpted version of yourself. Now, the thing is, fat loss is a lot more complicated than just weight loss. So now you've understood the basics to losing weight. Now it's time to dive into the basics on how you actually lose body fat. Now, the biggest factors that impact you holding onto that muscle and tapping into body fat is known as the big three. There's three main things. These are diet, which is the most important, exercise, which is the second most important, and then obviously recovery. Now, the thing is, diet is 80% of it. If you can master your diet, you will be able to get results, even if you don't train, even if you don't recover properly. But diet is so important, so you need to focus most of your attention onto your diet. Now look, there's so many diets out there, and like I said before, I've tried most of the diets that are out there. There's the keto, there's carnivore diet, there's the vegan diet, there's even the vegetarian diet. There's so many different diets, but what do all these diets have in common? They are ultra restrictive. These diets are super restrictive, and the biggest factor that determines how good a diet is adherence. Adherence is how long you can stick to that diet. The best diet in the world that you can't stick to is not a good diet. So if the carnivore diet will get you results but you can't stick to it, then it's actually not a good diet. So the best diet in the world is the diet that you can stick to. So there was actually a time I went on no sugar for 1 week. I actually tried to not eat any sugar for 1 week because I thought that was the diet that would help me with fat loss and give me the best results. So I remember, like, when I started this diet, at first I was struggling real hard. It was difficult. No sugar was really, really hard. And the first 2 days was super difficult, but I just kept pushing through. And I was also in a deep calorie deficit while I was doing the no sugar. Now, I won't lie, I did get results from this no sugar diet. My body recomposition was changed, and I was feeling better, and I was actually getting results. But then it got to the point where I just snapped. It felt too hard for me, it was difficult, and I just quit. I completely gave up on the diet and went back on sugar. Now, a lot of people think the no sugar diet would have been easy, but it's not just about cutting out sweets, sugar, candy, donuts, cake. You start to realize how many things in your day-to-day life have added sugars in them. I realized tomato sauce had added sugar. I realized basically every single sauce had added sugars in it. I realized that juice had added sugars. I realized that fruit juice, orange juice, had added sugars. So it got to the point where it's not what can't I eat, it's what can I eat, because there was literally more foods that had added sugars in them than foods that didn't. So in that moment, I struggled so hard that I just quit 1 week into the diet. Now, the no sugar diet could have been a really good diet on paper, scientifically, like a really good diet, but the fact that I couldn't stick to that diet means that that diet isn't good, because I wouldn't be able to stick to the diet long enough to see good results. So the best diet in the world is the diet that doesn't actually feel challenging like a diet. It's the diet that you can stick to for the rest of your life. The reason why 95% of people quit and fail on their fat loss journeys is because they cannot see themselves sticking to that diet for long enough. You have to be able to see yourself sticking to that diet and that approach for long enough for that approach to be effective. And that's the first mistake I made during my fat loss journey. So pick a diet that you genuinely enjoy, that you could literally be eating for the rest of your life, and that's going to be the best diet for fat loss. Now, the diet that I followed was eating mainly whole foods, eggs, a lot of meat, because I enjoy meat and I enjoy those foods. The next factor that would determine whether you hold on to muscle is actually keeping your protein very, very high. Now, this is a mistake a lot of people make. They don't eat enough protein, and when you're in a calorie deficit, it's more important to have more protein because your body has less energy. So if you're low on protein and you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose muscle, guaranteed. Protein is the building block of muscle. If you keep protein high, you'll be able to hold on to that muscle mass. There was a time I flew to my home country to go visit my grandma, and unfortunately her diet isn't that high protein, and I was in a calorie deficit. I was eating low calorie, and because I had low protein, I lost a good amount of muscle mass during that time. And the reason I know I lost muscle mass is because my strength went down. My gym lifts, like the lifts in the gym, I was lifting less weight. If you know anything about gym, you know that strength and muscle is somewhat positively correlated. The more muscle mass you have, the stronger you are. The stronger you are, the more muscle mass you have. So the fact that my strength was going down showed that I was actually losing muscle mass. The right amount of protein, the scientifically correct amount, is about 2.2 grams of protein per kg of body weight. So if you weigh 70 kgs, you want to be having 154 grams of protein, and that will be the best amount of protein that you can have to maximize how much muscle you can hold on to on the cut. Now, the next thing about fat loss is to trick yourself that you're more full than you actually are. So the best thing is that there's so many different foods out there, and there's so many different amounts of calories in those foods. And just because a food is higher calorie doesn't mean it will make you more full. In fact, lower calorie dense foods are to be your ally during a fat loss phase. Low calorie dense foods are foods that are low in calories, but they give you that feeling of fullness. They're foods that take up space in your stomach, which actually makes you feel more full. So that feeling of fullness is not linked to the amount of calories in the food. Some foods are high calorie and they don't give you that feeling of fullness, and some foods are low calorie but they make you feel really full. Compare a chocolate to a watermelon. Now, 300 calories of chocolate is like a small piece of chocolate, and imagine 200 calories of watermelon. That's like a lot of watermelon, because watermelon is lower calorie dense. So you probably feel more full eating 100 calories of watermelon than you will eating 300 to 400 calories of chocolate. So low calorie dense foods are to be your ally during your fat loss phase. And the best thing about it is it's a discovery process. When you're tracking your calories, when you're weighing different foods, you actually begin to find that, wow, this food had less calories than I thought it had. Wow, this food has more calories than I thought it had. And it becomes super fun. It becomes like a game. I want to see how many calories are in eggs. I want to see how many calories are in this fruit. I want to see how many calories are in this vegetable. So once you start tracking your calories with the scale, fat loss becomes fun. It's like a journey of discovering a lot more about food than you ever thought. Now, the next level to low calorie dense foods are satiating foods. So satiating is the actual feeling of fullness that you get from a food. And there's literally a satiety index that shows the different satiety levels of foods. And guess what's on top of that satiety index? It's actually potatoes. So potatoes make you feel full. Oats is up there. Oats makes you feel full. You can go look at the satiety index and see what foods are at the top. If you eat the foods that really make you feel full, you can actually get away with eating a lot less calories and still feeling that same feeling of fullness. If you can stick to mainly eating whole organic foods, foods that come from the earth, single ingredient foods, those foods are usually a lot more satiating than processed foods. It's a lot more satiating than foods that you can buy out of a cardboard box. You know what I mean? If a food is whole or organic, you must think to yourself, can this food be grown in a farm? It can be, so that's whole. Okay, can it be raised on a farm like animal-based meat? Then it's like, yes, it can, so that's whole organic. And processed food is foods that first need to be processed and mixed with other ingredients for it to become food. So think things like cookies, biscuits, sweets. You can't grow sweets, you can't farm sweets, but you can process it. So once you understand the difference between whole organic food and processed food is, now you can actually focus on the next rule, which is the 80-20 rule. Now the 80-20 rule states that 80% of your food should come from whole organic clean sources, and 20% of your food can come from processed food or foods that you enjoy, foods that may not be whole or organic or even part of your diet, but foods that you enjoy. What the 80-20 rule is for is that 80% of your diet food is actually meant for your progress, so getting in your protein and making you feel full, and 20% of your diet food is for the psychological relief of your cravings and the foods that you really enjoy. Now the thing is, a lot of people make the mistake of just going 100% eating clean food, but again, you cannot stick to that diet. That diet is difficult to stick to in the long run, so it isn't a good diet. The best diet in the world is the diet that doesn't feel like you're struggling. So if you incorporate 20% of your calories while you're still in that calorie deficit, and you incorporate 20% of those calories to go to foods that you enjoy, you actually get the psychological relief that you're on a diet. Now you don't feel like you're on a diet because you're eating the foods that you enjoy. Only 20% of these calories should be allocated towards that though. And you still have to be in a calorie deficit. That's why you need to track calories. You don't need to be so strict to the point where you're not even eating any foods that you enjoy. You can eat the foods you enjoy, just make sure you track your calories. You're still in that calorie deficit and it's only 20% of your diet. Now let's say you're eating 2000 calories a day. 20% of 2000 calories is 400 calories. 400 calories can go to cookies, can go to sweets, can go to any foods that you enjoy that will relieve you psychologically. And then 80% of your diet, which is 1600 calories, should go to those filling whole organic foods to get your protein intake in and to give you that feeling of fullness so that you don't overeat on your diet. Now we're going into the next thing that really helped me during my fat loss phase, and that is time restricted eating. Now before I was even on my diet, I had periods of time where I would do this thing called intermittent fasting, which is the same as time restricted eating, and I would basically not eat in the morning. I would only eat after I came back from school, and that was around 2-3 p.m. and I would eat in this eating window. So my eating window was like 6 hours, and in that time I wasn't tracking calories. I didn't care about any of those things. I just didn't like how eating food in the morning made me feel. It made my brain feel foggy, it made me feel tired and lethargic. Or I wasn't trying the intermittent fasting thing for the physiological benefits. It was just mainly for my mind and how I felt, and I didn't really want to eat in the morning, so I just did that approach. And looking back on my life now, every single time I did intermittent fasting, I lost weight. And even when I wasn't trying to lose weight, I wasn't calculating calories, I just lost weight. And looking back, I now understand exactly why I was losing weight. The reason why I was losing weight is because I subconsciously ate less calories without even realizing. Now there's two reasons why intermittent fasting really works. The first one is because 99% of people eat because of how food makes them feel. That's why we eat. It's called psychological hunger. That's why we eat pizza, because pizza is delicious. Pizza makes us feel good. That's why we eat pizza. And that's called psychological eating or emotional eating. We eat because of how food makes us feel. Now, when you go on a fast, you're actually eating in a smaller window of time. So now you're eating because you're actually hungry and you actually need the food, and not because, oh, I just feel like pizza, so I'm going to eat pizza. Even if you do eat pizza, you find that you eat less calories because you've got less time to eat psychologically and eat emotionally, because your eating window is way smaller. So the food you're eating is the actual calories that your body actually needs. It's not eating over those calories, and you have less time to be tempted like, I feel like let me eat ice cream right now, because it's outside of your eating window. So when your eating window does open, you actually are hungry, you actually need calories. I would recommend, highly recommend, that you try some form of intermittent fasting in an eating window. The best approach is just wait 5 hours from the time you wake up. From the time you wake up, wait 5 hours and then have your first meal. You will notice that it's a lot easier to deal with hunger in the morning, and then when you break your fast, you can eat more food. The food is squashed into a smaller time frame. It feels like more food psychologically. So you're tricking your mind into thinking that it's actually more food than you're actually eating. Imagine 2,000 calories a day spread across the entire day. From the second you wake up to the second you go to bed, you're just eating every 2 hours. 10 tiny meals, versus if you just wait 5 to 6 hours from the time you wake up to have your first meal, and then you wait like 4 hours, and then you have a big dinner, and then you wait like 2 hours, and then you have a dessert of your choice. The 20% rule, where you eat like an ice cream or something. That's the best approach, because it just feels like more food, because you're eating bigger meals. What would you tell somebody who struggles to put on size, to put on weight? You would tell them eat more food, right? And what else would you tell them? You would tell them maybe spread out your meals across the entire day, so that you have more opportunities to eat. Because if you're going to eat a lot of food in a small space in one meal, it's difficult. It's very hard. I've tried to eat 1,000 calories, 2,000 calories in one meal. It's very difficult. But if you spread yourself out, then you'll be able to eat a lot more food. That's why it's the opposite with weight loss and fat loss. If you want to feel like you're eating more food, you want to eat bigger meals. That's the whole thing. So fast for the first 5 hours of the day and eat a small lunch. You can have 400 calories, high protein. You can have like yogurt. This is what I had. I had protein yogurt, which is basically just Greek yogurt with like a scoop or 2 scoops of protein, and then banana. That's like 400 calories. That's what I would break my fast with at around lunchtime. And then I'll have a big dinner feast where I would eat the foods that I enjoy. I would eat a lot of meat, a lot of rice, a lot of vegetables, and I would have a lot of food, about 1,000 calories. And then 2 hours later, I would have my dessert, the 20% rule, ice cream, cookies, whatever I wanted. And I just made sure that it was about 400 calories. And there's my full day of eating about 1,800 calories. And it felt fun. It felt enjoyable, because I'm fasting in the morning. I'm hitting caffeine, black coffee. Black coffee is an appetite suppressant, so you actually don't feel as hungry when you're on black coffee. And then I break my fast, and then I have my big dinner feast, which is the highlight of the day. And then I have a dessert that I enjoy. Does that feel like a diet to you? No, it doesn't feel like a diet. But because I'm in a calorie deficit, I'm still going to make progress. And I made so much progress in that time because I was enjoying myself. I picked a diet that I genuinely enjoyed. So time restricted eating, aka intermittent fasting, is the best. It's one of the best approaches that I've personally done. And this is the one approach, the one thing that if you do, you will see results no matter what. As long as you're still tracking your calories and you keep in that calorie deficit, you will see results. Now, the next thing that you want to start doing is meal prepping. Meal prepping is when you pick one day and then you cook meals for like the next 3-4 days, so that you don't have to keep cooking every single day. Now, the thing is with meal prepping is that you can pick one day or 2 days out of the week where you cook a big serving of rice, of meat, and then you put it into meal prepping containers, and you can weigh the food, track the calories, and now each and every single day you're just eating the food from that day, and it's so much easier. You've tracked the calories, you've written the amount of calories they are already on your meal prepping container, so you know how many calories is in that food, and it just makes it way easier. It feels like your diet is almost automated. You don't even have to think. You just go to the fridge, get your meal prepping container, warm it up, boom, It's done. Meal prepping is solid. There's a reason why all the best bodybuilders meal prep. There's a reason why if you meal prep, you will see more results, because now you're not thinking, what food do I have to make that will be within my calories? No, you're not thinking like that. Now you're just like, okay, I've already meal prepped, so you don't even think about food throughout the day. Imagine if you're thinking about food the entire day. You're thinking about, what am I going to have for dinner? What am I going to make for dinner? That leaves room to have lingering thoughts of like, maybe I can fit a pizza in my diet as long as it's in my calories. And it's way easier to cheat on your diet and mess up on your diet if you don't meal prep. If you meal prep, you don't think about food, because that's already done. It's already organized. You know what you're going to eat. It's already sorted. So you don't have to keep further thinking, what am I going to fit in my calories? You're not thinking about that. Meal prepping also allows you to just eat the same things every single day. Now, a lot of diet is just about consistency. If you can just eat the same things every single day, then you've got less room to like mess around, mess up with your calories. Different foods can have a different effect on your body, but if you eat the same thing every single day and you're losing weight, then perfect. Now, a very important factor that you should be doing during your dieting period is that you should be tracking. And there's a few things that you should actually be tracking that will help you stay consistent on your journey. One of the most important things is your weekly average weight. You want your weekly average weight to consistently be going down. Now, the reason why we don't just pick a random day to weigh ourselves and then compare it to next week's is because your weight does fluctuate quite a little bit for many different factors. Like sodium can affect how heavy you are. If you have more sodium today, you carry more water weight and you might be heavier tomorrow, but it's not body fat, it's just water weight. So that's why we take the weekly average. The way you calculate your weekly average weight is you weigh yourself every single day. The best time to weigh yourself would be as soon as you wake up, just weigh yourself and then write down that number. And then you divide that number by 7 days for 7 days of the week. And this will give you your weekly average for week 1. Next week, you're going to do the same thing and you're going to compare the weekly average from week 1 to weekly average of week 2. You want to slowly see a trend of you losing that weight. Your average weekly weight should be going down, and that shows that you're actually in a calorie deficit, you're actually losing weight. If you don't see your weekly average weight going down, then you might not be in a calorie deficit. You have to lower your calories by at least 200 to 300 to start seeing more progress. Now, when it comes to supplements, a lot of people ask me like, what supplements are ideal for fat loss? They're thinking of like these fat burner supplements. They're thinking of a whole bunch of different things. Listen, supplements are 1%ers. You can take them if you want. They will make a little bit of progress, a little bit of difference, but they won't impact your physique like crazy. The biggest things that will impact your physique is diet, exercise, and training. Diet is the number one thing that will change the way you look and help you on your fat loss journey. There are 2 supplements that I will recommend, however, that will actually make a pretty substantial impact on your fat loss journey. The first one is protein powder. Now, the thing about protein is that if you can't get enough protein in your normal regular diet, then you do want to supplement so that you're not losing muscle mass. You can tap into that fat. So protein powder just helps you make sure that you're getting enough protein in your regular diet. The next one is creatine. Now, creatine helps with your gym sessions and your gym performance. You will find that you're a little bit more stronger when you're on creatine. You can push through and get those last 2 to 3 reps, which will help you hold on to that muscle mass during a fat loss phase. Now, we've covered diet. Now we're going into the next thing that will help you lose fat specifically, and that is resistance training. Now, the reason why we have to resistance train during a fat loss phase is so that we can send a signal to our brain that we are using the muscle and we need this muscle to survive, because your body doesn't know, oh, I'm in the gym, I'm training. No. Your body just knows that there was a stimulus that was sent to your biceps that you needed to be able to bicep curl a certain amount of weight. And if you aren't able to bicep curl that certain amount of weight, then you literally won't survive. Because we have to remember, before humans were in the modern day, we needed muscle mass for survival. Now we don't need it as much, but still, our brain works in the same way. So if you're training hard consistently, you send in a stimulus to your brain to hold on to muscle mass. So it leaves your brain no option but to only eat into fat, and it holds on to that muscle mass. And that's how you get that sculpted look, is when your body is holding on to muscle and we're losing fat. That's when we actually start to look good. We get that shrink wrap look. And that's the main reason why we train during a fat loss phase. Look, if you're not going to the gym right now, that's completely fine. The gym will give you the best best results in terms of holding on to muscle and even building muscle whilst losing body fat. But you don't have to just go to the gym. Any form of resistance training, whether that's calisthenics, whether that's doing push-ups at home, whether that's doing pull-ups, you just have to send the signal to your brain that you are using the muscle. If you don't train and you're not using the muscle, you're going to eat into muscle and you're going to lose muscle and lose fat and resulting in weight loss. You just need to send a signal to your brain that we're using the muscle, and you have to push yourself really, really hard, because the harder you can push yourself, you can actually cause muscle growth. You can build muscle and even lose body fat at the same time. You don't want to just be jumping around doing a whole bunch of random stuff. You actually want a general workout plan that you can stick to and be consistent with. So you can get a free workout plan in the description down below. I've put a free workout plan in the description. Or if you want to do push-ups, set up a plan. I'm going to do this many push-ups, and keep pushing yourself. Keep pushing progression, because progressive overload is the number one factor that you have to consider if you want to build muscle. Is, are you getting stronger in your lifts? If your lifts are improving by 1 to 2 reps, if you're increasing your weight, you are getting stronger. And in a calorie deficit, it's harder to build muscle, so you have to push yourself a lot harder. If you don't push yourself hard, you will lose muscle, I guarantee it. When you're in a calorie deficit, you don't have much energy. Your body doesn't have enough energy to build back up stronger, so it's gonna be a lot more difficult. You have to push really, really hard, and you have to fight for that progression if you actually want to build muscle. Now, a lot of people ask, how many times should I be training in the gym during a fat loss phase? Firstly, you just want to make sure you're not training 6 times a week. That does not work. During a fat loss phase, recovery is actually a lot slower because you're eating less calories. So you want to be going anywhere between 3 to 4 times a week, depending on how quickly you're recovering. You really want to be listening to your body and feeling it out. Like if you feel recovered, if you feel like you're getting stronger, then you can go 4 times a week. If you feel like your recovery is a little bit slower, then go 3 times a week. But minimum should be at least 3 times a week if you want to hold on to maximum amount of muscle mass. Now, when it comes to fat loss, meal timing becomes super important, because carbs are your body's primary source of energy. You definitely don't want to be training in a fasted state when you don't have the energy, when you don't have the carbohydrates and the glycogen stores in your muscle. You actually want to be training after you've eaten a meal, or maybe wait 1 hour and then hit the gym, so that your body can use the carbs from the meal in the gym. Now, when it comes to fat loss, you actually want to be doing slightly less volume and keeping the intensity as high as possible. So instead of doing 6 to 8 sets, which is crazy, do reverse pyramid training, 1 warm-up set and then 2 working sets. Reverse pyramid training is when you do 1 warm-up set and go straight to your heavier set, and then you can go down in weight slightly and do more reps on your second set. So you're basically doing 2 working sets, 1 warm-up set and 2 working sets. In your working sets, push yourself as hard as you possibly can. Now you're no more doing 4 sets, you're doing 2 sets, so you can push a lot harder. It's less volume. Push as hard as you possibly can so that you can hold on to that muscle mass. Now, you want to increase your total daily energy expenditure. Like I said in the beginning of this course, your total daily energy expenditure, your TDEE, is actually the amount of calories you burn on a day-to-day basis. So how do you increase the calories you're burning on a day-to-day basis? One way that won't sting is just increasing your step count. Literally just moving more on a day-to-day basis burns calories. It literally burns more calories. So increase your step count. You want to get to the point where you're eventually doing about 10,000 steps a day. But the best part is, if right now you're doing 2,000 steps, you moving from 2,000 steps to 3,000 to 4,000, you will see results, you will see progress. You are burning more calories. And you moving from 4,000 to 6,000, you will see more calories being burnt, which means more fat loss. And then 6,000 to 8,000, etc. Eventually, you want to work yourself up to doing about 10,000 steps a day. This is really good, because when you do steps, you don't really get an increase in hunger. So the thing about steps specifically is it doesn't really increase your hunger as much as other forms of cardio. When you go on a 5-kilometer run, you come back feeling ravenously hungry. If you just increase your steps, you can increase the amount of calories you're burning without feeling super hungry, so you won't feel the need to overcompensate by eating more food. I want you to imagine 2 versions of yourself. These versions of yourself are exactly the same in every single way. Same amount of weight, same everything. The only difference between these 2 versions of yourself is that one version does 10,000 steps a day, and one version is sedentary, is lazy, doesn't do any steps. Which one do you think is burning more calories? The version of you doing 10,000 steps a day, maybe does low intensity cardio, or the version of you doing absolutely nothing. It's obviously the version of you doing 10,000 steps a day, which is burning more calories. So if you're eating the same amount of food and this version is doing 10,000 steps a day, the version doing 10,000 steps a day is going to lose fat a lot quicker because he's moving more. Now the next step from walking is actually doing 4 more cardio. So you can do incline walking on a treadmill, which will actually increase the amount of calories you're burning on a day-to-day basis. The main thing about incline walking is that you don't want your heartbeat to go above 140 beats per minute. Now there's a lot of science behind it, but as long as your heartbeat is below 140 beats per minute, you're basically burning mainly fat stores. When your heart rate is too high, your body starts tapping into glycogen, which is carbohydrates in the muscle. You want to keep your intensity really low, 140 beats per minute or lower, so that your body is using fat as its main source of fuel. So we've covered the big two, which was training and diet. Now we're going on to the last one, which is recovery. And recovery is really simple. All you have to do is sleep 8 hours a night and don't overtrain. Sleep 8 hours a night and don't overtrain. The thing about sleep is it's so crucial, especially during a fat loss phase. Sleep is when your body actually builds back up muscle. It just makes fat loss a lot easier. There was a time I went traveling. I went to a different country, and during that time my sleep schedule was horrendous. Firstly, because we were mainly driving, so we were driving to that country, and when you're driving, you can't sleep well in the car. And then when we arrived at that country, I don't know what it is about sleeping in a different bed than the bed you're used to sleeping in every single day, but you just can't get high quality sleep. You just can't get proper sleep. Your sleep isn't as good. And during that time, I was still in a calorie deficit. I was still hitting my protein. I was still training really hard. But my fat loss progress was slower during that time, for sure. In my progress photos and in the scale weight, they were reflecting the same thing. And I did feel a little bit lazier during the day. And I was more tempted to eat candy, eat sweets, just because my sleep was worse. When I was getting good sleep, I was able to get my morning walk. When I wasn't getting good sleep, I would miss my time slot for my morning walk, and I would need to now actually do other stuff in the day, and it was a lot more difficult to actually get my steps in and actually commit to my habits and commit to my goals. It actually got to the point where when you're not getting enough sleep, you're not as strong mentally, and you're like, why did I even start this journey in the first place? And you sort of have that give up mindset. When you get enough sleep, you have a strong mind, you have a strong reason, you have a strong purpose, you remember why you started, you have time to really reflect, focus on your goals, and think about what you're doing with your life. Now, one thing that will happen on your fat loss journey is you might get tempted at just listening to the scale, and the scale isn't always right, because the scale only tells you how much you weigh. It doesn't properly reflect the progress you're making. Whether you're building muscle and losing fat at the same time, the scale can stay the same. The scale can stay at exactly what it is. It doesn't know that the weight you're building is muscle. It doesn't know that you've lost fat. So don't track with just the scale. You want to also track with progress photos. You want to take progress photos every single week. Take progress photos from the front, side, and back. This will give you a good estimation of your progress, because you can actually see the visual changes happening in your body, and you can also use the scale to rectify those changes. So if the scale is stuck at 80 kgs, like it was for me at some point, even though I was seeing different photos of myself where I was actually looking better, but the scale was just stuck. So imagine if I just used the scale as my main way of tracking. I would have given up on my journey. I would have been like, I'm not making progress. Yet I was making progress. It's because I was building muscle and I was losing fat simultaneously, which keeps the scale stuck at that same number of 80 kgs, but you're making progress. So don't use just the scale. Use progress photos and the scale together. Now, on my journey, I actually discovered there's about 5 fat loss cheat codes that will make it a lot easier to lose body fat and see progress. The first one is using caffeine. Caffeine is one of the best appetite suppressants in the world. In fact, a lot of these fat burner supplements and these things that are supposed to help with fat loss, the main ingredient in these actual fat loss supplements is caffeine. And the reason it's the main ingredient is because it's the best appetite suppressant. So the way these fat loss supplements work is they actually just suppress your appetite, making you eat less food and making you less hungry. So the way I use caffeine is that during my fasting window, when I was doing time restricted eating, I would drink the caffeine so that I wouldn't feel as hungry, and I was able to get through that fast till I reached my first meal of the day. So if you use caffeine in this way, you'll actually be able to get through the fast a lot easier. If you drink black coffee, it won't break your fast. That's what I was doing. But if you're not a coffee fan, you can use caffeine tablets. They have a pretty similar effect. The next fat loss cheat code I was using 0-calorie drinks. Now, once you know that calories is the main reason why you're gaining weight, you will find that the zero sugar drinks are more appealing. Think of it like this. There's two Fantas. One is 100 calories. Wait, no. Fanta is like 250 calories. So one Fanta is 250 calories. The other Fanta is 0 calories because it's got zero sugar. They taste relatively the same. Now, if you want to come at me, argue and say, no, the one with sugar tastes better. Is it really worth it to have the one with sugar if you're going to have 250 empty calories when you could have the one with zero sugar and have 0 calories and it tastes maybe 1 or 2% worse than the actual Fanta? So 0-calorie drinks are an absolute cheat code. The next one is to have lower calorie alternatives of the foods you crave and the foods you enjoy. Now, a lot of people, they get onto this diet. They used to eat pancakes and they try to cut out pancakes completely. But it's like, no, eat a lower calorie version of the pancakes. Enjoy the diet. I learned how to make protein pancakes on this journey. And if you're on my protein pancakes recipe, comment down protein pancakes. I might make a video. Now, protein pancakes taste almost the same as actual pancakes, except the macronutrients are different. The protein is different. The calories, it's way lower calories. It's literally giving you the same taste as the normal pancakes, but with way less calories. The next one is satiating foods. Now, I've told you about this at the start. 300 calories of chocolate versus 300 calories of watermelon. Satiation is different. You feel more full when you have the watermelon, even though it's the same calories. Calories is not correlated with how full a food makes you feel. Now, the next fat loss cheat code is using volume adding foods. Now, there's foods that you can specifically mix into other foods that will just make you feel more full because it adds a lot of volume that takes space in your stomach, which is what's going to give you that feeling of fullness. Think of things like egg whites, think of things like vegetables. They will give you that feeling of fullness and they will make you feel more full because they take more space in your stomach. Egg whites is straight protein. It's basically just protein. So you can add egg whites to your meals to increase the protein and increase that feeling of fullness that you get. Vegetables are super low calories. You can have an entire salad, if there's no salad dressing, for like 40 calories and it will be a bowl this big. So you can just add salad to your meals. You can add spinach, you can add vegetables. Vegetables are super low in calories. Just adding mixed vegetable to like your ground beef, it makes it a lot more filling and it doesn't increase your calories that much. Now, during my fat loss phase, I hit a fat loss plateau around 7 weeks in, and I didn't really know what to do to navigate that plateau. You will get a fat loss plateau at some point during your fat loss journey. This is exactly what to do when you get a fat loss plateau. Now, the reason why you get a fat loss plateau is because you literally need less calories now. As you lose body fat, as your body recomposition is changing, as you are lighter weight, you literally are burning less calories on a day-to-day basis. And that's what I didn't understand. Doing 10,000 steps a day at 93 kgs, which is what I started on, is different to doing 10,000 steps a day at 83 kgs. Because I'm 10 kgs heavier, I'm going to burn more calories at 93 kgs. So the fact that I had lost the weight means that I literally did not need as many calories. And my maintenance calories reduced and went down. That's why I hit a plateau. Because I was eating the same calories, but my maintenance calories had gone down. So I needed to simply lower the amount of calories I was burning on a day-to-day basis. Now, the best part about a fat loss plateau is that you don't have to just reduce your calories in food. You can also increase the steps you're doing on a day-to-day basis. You can increase your steps from 1,000 to 2,000 extra steps on top of what you are doing normally, and that will trigger more fat loss because you're burning more calories. Or you can increase your cardio. You can do 40 minutes extra for more cardio per week, and that will add more fat loss for you. Simply just burn more calories through doing more steps, doing cardio. Or if you don't want to do cardio or steps, you can simply just reduce the calories you're eating on a day-to-day basis. I personally don't like reducing my calories. I like to eat. I love food. So I'd rather do more steps and eat the same amount. It creates the calorie deficit. The calorie deficit is the most important factor that will determine your fat loss. So is fat loss difficult? Physiologically, it's not that difficult. It's literally science and maths. But psychologically, it can be difficult, especially if you don't change your identity and be willing to change your habits. Then it becomes difficult. It's a mental game. And the reason why I know it's difficult mentally is because I've known about the calorie deficit. I've known about sticking to your diet for most of my life. And a lot of people who know about, I need to go on a diet, I need to do this, they still don't do it, and they still don't make progress because they haven't shifted their mindset and they haven't locked in mentally. So fat loss as a scientific physiological process is super easy. Everyone knows that they need to be in a calorie deficit. Everyone knows that they need to eat healthy, they need to train. But a lot of people don't understand that you need to shift your mind when it comes to fat loss. You can't have the same mindset that you did that's gotten you the results of where you are now and think that you just eating in a calorie deficit is going to get you results. No, it's going to be difficult in your mind. You have to shift your mind and become a different version of yourself, the version of yourself that's able to get a six-pack, the version of yourself that's able to lose body fat is not that same version of yourself that you are now. Because if you were that version of yourself that could lose body fat, then you would have lost body fat by now. So you simply aren't that version of yourself yet, and you have to learn how to shift your mind first to see results. And this is what no one tells you. There's no videos on the internet about this. People don't even know that you have to do it, but everyone who's lost fat and made progress has shifted their mindset and their identity to a new version of themselves. And that's why 95% of people fail on their diet, fail on their fat loss, is because they don't shift their mind and their identity to become a new version of themselves. Now, when it comes to mindset, the first thing that you have to do as the most important thing is to first set a real tangible goal. And the best goal that you can make when it comes to fat loss is a body weight goal, because it's numbers. Numbers are easy to understand. They're easy to measure when you've achieved your goal, and it's easy to see progress from that number. That's why it's very easy to set a number goal, and it's very recommended that you should set an actual target number, like a number, so that we can actually track and measure progress. So I remember my goal was to lose 10 kgs of body fat. That was my first main goal. What you want to do after you set that goal is to break that goal down. So you don't want to just focus on, okay, 10 kgs, because 10 kgs is quite a long way compared to if you break that goal down. You want to break that goal down into smaller chunks. These chunks are like segments, they're like checkpoints that you hit along the way. So as you're going towards 10 kg, it's like, oh, I lost 1 kg, and it's something to celebrate and be happy about. And this gives you that feeling of making progress. When you feel like you're making progress, it's easy to stay consistent on your journey. So you want to have your big goal of 10 kgs, and you want to break that goal down into 5 smaller goals to say 2 kgs we're going to celebrate, 4 kgs we're going to celebrate, 6 kgs we're going to celebrate. As you are getting to that goal, you've hit these mini smaller goals, which are like checkpoints on your journey, which give you that sense of, wow, we're making progress, and it actually makes you feel happy in the moment. So don't just set one big goal and try and aim for that goal. Set one big goal and then break that goal down into smaller mini segments and chunks that you will reach along the way. The next thing you need to do when it comes to mindset is write down an accountability contract. Literally write down to yourself your why you started this journey, what losing body fat will do for you, whether it will increase your confidence. Write down everything, be in detail with it. Really focus on the benefits that you'll get from being fitter, in the best shape of your life. Really focus on every single benefit that you can. Write that down. Write down why you started it, how it will impact your life, how it will impact your relationships, how it will impact your confidence, how you feel about yourself. Your why is so important because it brings purpose to your journey. When you are doing something with purpose, it's completely different to you just randomly just wanting to lose weight just because you look better. Looking better is a shallow reason. Write down so many different reasons. Add, you will look better, you have a better jawline, you have more attention from people. And just go super in detail with why specifically do you want to lose body fat, how it will impact your life, how it will impact how you feel, your relationships, and everything. Go super in detail. Don't hold back. Write down everything. During times of weak, low motivation, you want to look at this accountability contract, and you're going to remember the true reason of why you started, whether you got bullied for how you look. Write that down because that's going to keep you motivated. So write down the exact reason why you're doing this, why you started. This will bring purpose to your fat loss journey. During that time of weak, low motivation, when you look at that accountability contract, you'll get an instant spike in motivation because you remember the purpose behind why you started. Your why should save you during times of weakness. When you feel super weak, low motivated, your why should uplift you and bring you back and remind you and revive you to be like, yes, this is why I started the progress, and should just bring you back. In this accountability contract, you're also going to write down a motivational quote, specifically for those days when you're not going to feel motivated, because trust me, they will come. Some days you just won't feel like walking 10,000 steps a day. You just won't feel like tracking your calories. You just won't feel like being on a diet. There's days when you literally just feel like quitting. There will be those days. It always happens. So you must write down the motivational quote with an accountability contract of why you started. During that days when they will come, trust me, they will come. When that day comes when you feel like quitting, when you feel like giving up, you're just going to look at that accountability contract and you're going to remember why you started. And then you're going to feel motivated again, and you're going to have enough motivation to push through one more day. And then the next day, we'll worry about the next day when it comes. And then when the next day comes, you just push through one more day. You just gotta take it one day at a time and keep pushing every single day. When it comes to mindset, you need commitment, 100% commitment. You can't be, I kind of want to lose fat. No, you have to be, I want to lose fat. I want to see progress. I want to be in the best shape of my life. That's what you have to write down. You have to commit 100%. Once you begin the path, there is no leaving the path. You've chosen the fat loss journey, so you're going to stick to the journey until you see results. You can delay yourself, you can slow down your progress, but you will get there eventually. And that's the level of commitment, to be like, no matter how long it takes, I'm going to lose the body fat. And when you commit 100% to something, you will see results. So don't commit half-heartedly, being like, let me see if it works, let me try. You have to, like, 100%, I'm in this journey for life. The next thing is one of the most important factors. You have to change your identity. Your identity is the beliefs that you have about yourself internally, your standards you have about yourself. There is a standard to everything. The reason why you're in the position you are in right now is because your standard to the amount of body fat you had on your frame was that it was okay to get a little bit fluffy. These high-level athletes, think of people like Cristiano Ronaldo. He has a six-pack. Do you think he will ever get to the point where he's fat? No, because he's got a standard, and your standard is part of your identity. So you have to shift your identity and become that fit version of yourself in the mind, and your standard has to be that fit version of yourself, to say, I'm not going to allow to see myself fluffy and chubby. Now, there was a time I tried to lose body fat without changing my identity. I just did the physiological processes of being in a calorie deficit and doing more steps, and at first I did see results, but as soon as I hit one of those weak moments, those weak days where I felt like giving up, I gave up, because I was like, why am I even doing this? Why did I even start this journey? Deep down, it was because I didn't believe that was who I was. I didn't believe that I was worthy of a six-pack, and that's why I didn't get it. It's because I didn't believe that that's who I was. I still saw myself as the chubby, fat version of myself who preferred eating donuts. You have to change that. First, you have to really just see yourself as that six-pack version of yourself. Or even if having a six-pack isn't your goal, you have to see yourself as like having less weight on your body. And you have to start to believe that that is who you are now. Back then, when I was 93 kgs, I had to start seeing myself as a six-pack. And people will laugh at you for this. I had to start literally envisioning myself with a six-pack and picturing how I would look with a six-pack and really feeling how I would feel if I had a six-pack. And I started believing that that's who I was now. And at first, it doesn't feel like it works. And people might laugh at you saying that, no, you don't have a six-pack, look at you. But you have to become that version of yourself first in your mind before you can physically become it. The body always goes where the mind goes first. At first, in that time, I was like, is it really working? I'm imagining myself with a six-pack. Look at how I look a few months later. Now, I'm not 100% there. I'm still on my fat loss journey, and I'm still going to be losing a little bit more body fat throughout. But to have basically a six-pack while sitting down was something that I never believed that I could possibly have in my life, until I started changing my identity. So this identity stuff does work. Start picturing, envisioning yourself, feeling how it would feel to have the six-pack, even if you don't have that six-pack, and start believing that that is who you are. And you will watch yourself become that version of yourself, because you will adopt the beliefs, the mindset, everything that version of yourself would do, you will start doing. The way you do this is by creating an alternate identity. It's a second identity that is you, but the best version of yourself. So for me, I named this identity Jay-Z. And during those moments of weakness, I'll be like, what would Jay-Z be doing in this moment? Would Jay-Z be eating these donuts? Would Jay-Z go off his diet? Would Jay-Z not be getting his steps in? And the answer was always no. Jay-Z is the best version of myself, so he would go on his walk, do 10,000 steps. He would push through the pain. He would stay consistent on his diet. He would be tracking his calories. And that best version of yourself, you can actually create a name for that version. And as soon as you feel weak, just ask yourself, would this best version of yourself be doing this right now? And the answer is always no. And you'll find that you gain strength from nothing, just because you've created this alternate identity for yourself, which is the best version of yourself, and you are becoming that version of yourself. And you have to start to believe that you are that version of yourself now. Ask yourself, would this version of myself be doing this right now? And the answer is no. So you don't do that thing. You are literally becoming that best version of yourself, because you're making the same decisions that best version of yourself would be making. Now, the next one is the one more day mindset. Stop looking at this journey as just a means to an end, because it's going to feel like a long journey if you just focused on the end goal, if you just focused on how you would look with that six-pack. Stop focusing on the end, final destination, final end goal. Start focusing on what you're doing today. Start focusing on, I'm going to stay on my diet, get my steps in, track my calories for one more day, and then do the same thing tomorrow. Just do it for one more day. Do it for one more day. Every single day, you're just doing that thing for that day. Eventually, you realize that you've done the protocol for that day for so long that you've done it for 120 days, that you've done the protocol and you've lost all the body fat because you just stuck to that protocol for one more day. A lot of people, they quit on their fat loss journeys because they're like, I gotta stay on this diet for 3 more months. And it's like, no, you don't have to stay on that diet for 3 more months. You just have to stay on that diet for today and do the same thing tomorrow. If you stop looking at this journey as, I gotta do this for this long, and start looking at it as, I'm just gonna stick to this journey for one more day, and then the next day you do it for one more day. In the end of the day, you've done it for one more day so long that you've basically made your entire progress. It's just about reframing how you look at it. You're not on this journey for months, you're on this journey for one more day, and you just do the same for one more day. Now, the last mindset hack that you need is, if you fail, get back up. What happens if you fall down? If you fall down, you just have to get back up. Are you gonna fall down and quit and mess yourself up? No. If you fall down, you just get back up. That's what happens. So if you if you mess up your diet, if you crash, if you binge diet, you've only binged for one day. It means you've slowed down your progress by one day. But a lot of people make the mistake. They binge once and they're like, okay, I've messed up. Now I'm going to binge even more. I'm going to binge this whole week. And then they quit and they're like, I binged once, and then they quit. But look, if you binge once, keep it at that. You've binged once, leave it at that. Don't make it worse than it needs to be. Just leave it at one binge and get right back onto the plan. Now, my fat loss journey was messy. There was many days when I binged, but the one thing I did do was, as soon as I would binge, the next day I would get right back onto the protocol. Did make my fat loss journey a lot longer than it needed to be, but at least I didn't quit. I just kept moving forward. I just kept taking one step, one more step. If you keep moving forward, you will keep making progress. The progress might be slower, but you can keep moving. So don't give up if you mess up, if you binge, if you eat too much sugar, too many calories. Don't make it worse than it needs to be. Now, there's a lot of mistakes that I made in my journey, and trust me, you want to avoid making these mistakes on your fat loss journey, because you simply mess up your progress. You might even end up quitting on your fat loss journey. The first mistake is cutting calories too aggressively, thinking, yes, if I eat in a deep calorie deficit, if I lower my calories a lot, then I'll lose body fat way quicker. And yes, you will lose weight quicker, but you actually lose weight in an unhealthy manner. In fact, the side effects of just being so deep into a calorie deficit, they're super bad. Now, I made this mistake on my first fat loss journey. I cut really hard. I cut my calories down to 1,500 calories every single day, and this had such a negative impact on my body. I lost a lot of muscle mass and I lost a lot of strength. I was losing weight, but I was also losing fat and muscle. I wasn't just losing body fat. I was looking smaller, weaker, skinnier, almost like in an unhealthy, sick way. Like, are you healthy? Are you okay? And the way you feel when you're in a deep calorie deficit is mentally you just don't feel good, because you're not supposed to be in a deep calorie deficit like that. Your body literally needs food as fuel. If you really want to think of what a diet is, or a calorie deficit, it's literally controlled starvation. You're literally starving yourself in a very controlled manner where you keep in control of all the factors and resources. So if you mess up somehow and you eat too deep into a calorie deficit, it's not healthy for you. You're literally starving. That's what's happening. That's what happens when you eat into a calorie deficit, is you're starving. You're literally starving. So you will lose muscle, you will lose fat in an unhealthy manner. You can even get sick somehow. You literally feel weak, your immune system will be weak, and you won't feel good about life. You just feel not good. So don't eat too deep into a calorie deficit. Keep it 500 calories max. That is healthy, that is recommended. You can push it a little bit higher, maybe 600 calories, but keep it 500 calories. Trust me, you'll be healthiest at 500 calories, and that is recommended by literal doctors. So you can keep the calorie deficit small. The next one is cutting out carbs. Now, why would you cut out carbs if you enjoy carbs, thinking that it's better for your diet? Trust me, keep some level of carbs in your diet. It makes your diet a lot more fun. Your diet becomes too restrictive when you cut out carbs. If you're not enjoying your diet, you won't stick to it for a long period of time, and you'll just quit and you'll fail and you'll give up. The next mistake I see is people training on a empty stomach, training in a fasted state. I've tried it. Don't do it, for many different reasons. The first one is your body uses carbs as a source of fuel. When you're in a fasted state, you're in a calorie deficit, you literally don't have energy. You won't be able to push as hard as you would be able to push if you had fueled properly before your workout. If you had a meal, you just have more energy and more strength. You can push harder, you can push the weight harder. You'll be able to hold on to a lot more muscle mass if you can push harder in the gym. If your gym sessions are really bad, you won't be able to hold on to muscle mass, and you will lose muscle way easier. Don't do it. Trust me, it's not worth it. The next mistake is using very strict diets. Carnivore diet, vegan diet, this diet. You don't really have to change your diet that much to see results. You just have to stick to the 80-20 rule. Eat mainly whole, organic, clean sources of foods, and be in a calorie deficit, and you will see results guaranteed. So don't push it any harder than it needs to be. It is not worth it. Stick to an approach that works, that is sustainable, that you can see yourself doing for the rest of your life. If you go off your diet, simply come back on your diet. Don't make it worse than it needs to be. If you mess up your diet, you ate cupcakes, you ate cookies, it's fine. Just come back onto your diet, forgive yourself, and start making progress again. Now, the next mistake I see is drinking your calories. Don't drink your calories. It's literal waste. There was a time I went with one of my cousin sisters to a restaurant, and she basically ordered a meal which was like 600 calories, and on the side she ordered a milkshake. So the milkshake was delicious. Obviously, I tried it. It was very good, but it is really high calories. We were just like, me and my brother were just messing around, checking on the menu to see how many calories it is. It was a 1000 calorie milkshake. It is not worth it. The calories were not worth it, because between the 600 calorie meal that she had and the 1000 calorie milkshake, the 600 calorie meal was way more filling than the 1000 calorie milkshake, you see. So even though the milkshake was higher calories, it was less filling than actual food. Drinking calories through smoothies, etc., it's almost like empty calories, because it doesn't make you feel that full. So particularly when you're in a calorie deficit, you're dieting, focus mainly on solid calories. They will literally make you feel more full than liquid calories. For those of you who made it till the end of this video, I'm going to be giving you something very special. I'm going to be giving you my Inferno Fat Loss solution that I personally did on my journey. The things I did on my journey that I really focused on, the habits that I did, I'm going to be giving it to you completely for free right now. The first thing I did was 10,000 steps a day. That was non-negotiable. I split this up into like 3 walks in the day. I did a morning walk. In the afternoon, when I went to the gym, I just did extra steps here and there, and then in the evening I would go on a short walk. If you start your day with steps, it becomes easy. The next thing was I kept a 500 calorie deficit no matter what. It's very simple. Track your calories. If you're not tracking, you're slacking. Start tracking your calories. If you know what's going into your body and you know what you're burning, you'll be able to create that 500 calorie deficit pretty easily, pretty simple. The next one was time restricted eating. This was cornerstone. One of the biggest things that I did that made the most impact on my journey was just pushing out my first meal 5 hours. Wake up, wait 5 hours, then you can have your first meal. Simple. The next thing is using caffeine as an appetite suppressant. Caffeine is the best appetite suppressant in the world. You can use black coffee or caffeine tablets, and this will help you on your journey, especially when you're in that fasted state. Now, for those who made it till the very end, I want you guys to comment Inferno Fat Loss down in the description below. Just comment Inferno. We want to confuse everyone who didn't watch this video till the very end. For those of you who watched the video to the very end, comment Inferno down below, and then I will know that you are the legends that made it till the end of the video. Now, for you special people who made it till the end of the video, I have something special for you guys. If you found this guide very helpful, but you want more guidance, you want a community of like-minded individuals like me and many other people who are also starting their fat loss journey, many other people who are changing their mindset, shifting their identity, and becoming the best version of yourself, I am willing to make a full fat loss course coupled with everything I ate, low calorie dense meals, meal replacements that you can have, how to make protein pancakes. All of these guides will be in my fat loss course, and we will have live calls, weekly live calls, where you can speak and discuss with other people who are also on their fat loss journey. It will be a massive community. I am looking to build the world's biggest fat loss community in the world, and it starts with you guys. Comment fat loss community in the description down below. If we get 100 comments written fat loss community, I will start my fat loss community and we'll start that journey. I just need to know that there is demand for it. So in the comment section, go fat loss community, and if we get 100 different comments from different people written fat loss community, I will make the fat loss community, and it will be so much fun. We will be able to connect with so many different people who are also on their fat loss journeys and making progress. Let's go. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you feel like someone that you know, whether it's a friend or family member, needs to see this video, needs to learn about fat loss, needs to learn how simple fat loss can be, then share this video with a family member and you can change a life. Remember that, one life at a time. We will change people's lives through body recomposition.